Hello, beautiful people. Thank you so much for joining me. My name is Liz. I hope you're having a wonderful week so far. And if you're like, I don't care about you, where is that cute dog I saw in the intro? She's right here on the bed beside me. Editing Liz, please switch to Lilycam. Yep, there she is. Hi, Lily. How's it going? So if you hear any noise disturbances in this video, it's most likely my dog just trying to ruin my life. Yeah, because I create zero noise disturbances. So I want to just jump straight into it. Today we are talking about the Taconic State Parkway Crash that took place in Mount Pleasant in New York in 2009. The crash occurred at about 1:35 p.m. on Sunday, the 26th of July, when a red Ford Windstar 2003 model driven by Diane Schuler, who was 36 at the time, entered the Taconic State Parkway via an exit ramp. The minivan traveled south against northbound traffic in the passing lane for most of the rest of the world. This would be the right-hand lane. And she did this for nearly 3 kilometers or 2 miles before colliding head-on with a 2002 Chevrolet Trailblazer, which then hit a 2004 Chevrolet Tracker. The Ford Windstar had been travelling at approximately 137 k's or 85 miles when the collision occurred, and witnesses would later say that Diane made no effort to avoid oncoming traffic, and it was like she looked right through them like they weren't even there. 7 people died on the scene, including Diane herself, her 2-year-old daughter Erin, 2 of her nieces, Emma and Kate, aged 8 and 5. The 3 men in the Trailblazer who had been on their way to a family lunch all perished. The 2 people in the Tracker thankfully walked away with minor injuries. Diane's other niece, Allison, who was 7, was rushed in an ambulance in critical condition to the hospital, but sadly died on the way. And the sole survivor from the minivan was her son, Brian, who was aged 5. He was also taken to hospital with 2 broken arms, a broken leg, and serious head trauma. Days later, after an autopsy, it was revealed that Diane's blood alcohol level was 0.19%, and this was over double the legal driving limit. To give you an idea of 0.19 blood alcohol percentage, if she had been just 0.01% higher, she would have been in the level where you would start to encounter alcohol toxicity and potentially need to be admitted to the ER. So this wasn't just a couple of drinks to take the edge off. She wasn't just casually tipsy. She was very heavily intoxicated. She also had 6 grams of alcohol still in her stomach yet to be metabolized. And on top of this, she also had very high levels of THC in her system, the active ingredient in marijuana, and could have been smoking or ingesting the drug as recently as 15 minutes before the crash occurred. When these results were released to the public, though, Diane's husband, Daniel Schuler, held a press conference pretty much immediately after, straight up and down swearing that there was no way that Diane was drunk or high in the car with those kids, that there had to be some kind of medical event that occurred beyond Diane's control, and that's what had caused the crash. Diane's family said that she rarely drank, and when she did, it was only on social occasions and never to excess. She did occasionally smoke pot, but they said it was only at night, at home, to kind of wind down and help her sleep. And Daniel still stands by these claims over 10 years later, despite a broken 1.7-litre vodka bottle being found at the crash site in the minivan, and the toxicology reports being sent off to another lab so that they could retest them, and the results came back exactly the same. So this case, guys, has seriously disturbed me since I heard about it a few years ago. It seems really straightforward at first, but the more you look into it, the more you realize, wait, this is actually really confusing and really complicated and nothing makes sense. And every time I think I figured it out, I remember a bit of information or I learn a new bit of information, and it just throws everything up in the air again, and I have no idea what's happening. If you haven't heard of Diane Schuler or the Taconic State Parkway Crash, I am sorry. This case is incredibly frustrating. You get that feeling where you can't remember a word. It's right on the tip of your tongue, but you can't quite spit it out. Or you're doing a puzzle, but you don't have the picture on the box to look at, and you're missing about 20 pieces. That is the feeling you're going to have at the end of this video. So I'm sorry if you keep watching. I obviously want you to keep watching. I just don't want you to be mad at me. I'm sorry. I warned you. Okay, we're good. We're good. We're good? Yeah, we're good. And if you have heard of Diane Schuler, you're likely here because you're just as obsessed as I am. Keep watching because you're likely to learn something new, and you might even unlearn a couple of things, because I want to kind of put to bed a couple of myths about the case in this video. I've researched the case on and off over the last few years, but this time I was like, no, I'm going to figure it out. So I have about 32 tabs open on my browser on my phone, and they're all about Diane Schuler. And that's where we're going to start today, on like a deep dive into Diane Schuler's life. Because once you learn what her friends and family had to say about her and her background, you're already going to be like, how did this happen? What? How? Why? How? That's what you're going to be like. God, I hope I'm in focus right now. I forgot to check. I'm sorry if I am not. Thank you. So there's pretty much zero information online when you go researching about Diane's childhood or her early life. But luckily, the HBO documentary, There's Something Wrong with Aunt Diane, does a really good job of painting a picture of what Diane's life was like before the crash. So Diane Schuler was born on the 13th of November, 1972, and grew up in Floral Park, New York. She was the only daughter born to her parents, Warren Hance and Elaine McKeough. The Australian in me wants to say McKeough, but I have a feeling it's McKeough. She had 3 older brothers and seemed to have a relatively normal childhood until when she was 9 years old, her mother, Elaine, left the family. This was an event that obviously would have had an enormous effect on Diane, but she rarely spoke about it in her adult life, even to her husband, Daniel. According to some of Diane's extremely close childhood friends, her mother left with the man living next door and later married him. Years after leaving, Elaine attempted to pursue a relationship with her children, and she was successful in doing this with Diane's 3 brothers, but Diane was never on board and refused all attempts by Elaine to contact her. And it sounds like on top of never talking to anyone close to her about this, she never received any counseling or therapy for the impact that this abandonment no doubt would have had on her life, on her relationships, on her coping mechanisms, etc. As a young girl, Diane took on the role of woman of the house, looking after her dad and her brothers. So this little girl's mum leaves her, and then she takes on the huge role of managing a household of 5. Cooking, cleaning up after her dad and her brothers, basically just keeping the house running. So it's no real surprise that Diane grew into a very capable, very strong young woman who liked to run the show. She liked to be in control, and she was a perfectionist. In school, Diane was known as the class clown. People described her as someone you wanted to be around, someone who took a real interest in your life, and someone who could always make you laugh. She didn't like the spotlight, but she always found herself there because of her big personality and her infectious sense of humor. And in spite of this, her friends said she had a really good head on her shoulders and was very responsible from a young age. Like so many other women, Diane struggled with her weight and got caught up in yo-yo dieting. So her weight fluctuated a bit. She also reportedly had diabetes. She never really had any boyfriends or anyone she was seeing growing up. So she ended up just kind of watching her friends slowly get paired off with their significant others. I think she probably would have experienced quite a bit of loneliness at this time in her life until at a friend's wedding, she met Daniel Schuler, and the two instantly had a spark and fell in love. And Daniel, we're going to call him Danny from this point on, He was Diane's first and only love. It's impossible to find out online what year they were married, but using my brain and doing some math, Daniel said they had been together 13 years, so it was likely 1996 that they met, and they had been married for 5 or 6 years before the crash, so they most likely got married around 2001, 2002. Math. When they had their children, first Brian on the 5th of October 2004 and then their daughter Erin on the 6th of August 2007, Diane was just an incredible mother to these kids. They were so well looked after and so loved. Diane was the first mum every morning dropping Brian off at kindergarten. The kids' clothes were spotless, ironed even. They never had toothpaste around their mouth or hair out of place. They were impeccable and they clearly adored their mother. She was so dedicated and so proactive, frequently signing up for chaperoning school trips and putting herself down on lists to donate things for school parties, all that kind of thing. And this was all while working a full-time job. We could sit back and speculate and say it looked like she was determined that these kids were going to have the mother that she never did. Diane was notorious amongst her family and friends for her sharp mind, and Danny once bragged to New York Magazine in an interview about how when they were buying a car once and the car salesman was still adding up the costs on his calculator, Diane caught him out in a $100 error. And that when they went grocery shopping, she would know the cost of the groceries in their trolley within pennies before they even got to the cashier. I'm sure it was this intelligence along with her determined nature that helped her climb the career ladder at a company called Cablevision when she dropped out of Nassau Community College. She started in a back office job and just slowly worked her way up to the executive position of Director of Credits, Billing and Collections, which earned her 6 figures, making her the breadwinner of the Schuler family. The constant trend you pick up on when watching interviews with people who knew Diane is that they were in awe of her. She had this very demanding full-time job, managed a household and its finances, and was the main caregiver to 2 young children. 3 if you count Danny, who joked along with his mother that he was her eldest child. So it sounds like she did all of this with very little support network to help her. And despite all this, people said that Diane never seemed overwhelmed or moody or tired or generally affected by anything. She made her incredibly stressful and busy life look easy. You would never hear her complain about anything, whether it be her job, her kids, if she was ill. She was totally self-reliant and independent because that's what she had had to be since she was 9 years old. And speaking of illness, Diane was said to not believe in medicine and didn't even have a primary care physician. She was terrified of doctors, terrified that if she went to see them, they would deliver bad news. She also was terrified of dentists, but between 2005 and 2008, she did have a series of appointments, the last of which occurred just over a year before the accident. One of these dentist appointments was for a root canal. In another one of the appointments, Diane was said to jump up from the dentist chair mid-appointment and run out of the office because she couldn't handle it. But this was never confirmed by the dentist office. In the week leading up to the accident, Danny, her sister-in-law Jay, and her best friend Christine all said that Diane was frequently rubbing at her jaw, clutching at her jaw, moving her jaw around. And this may all seem like irrelevant information and you're like, Liz, seriously, move on. But trust me, this is going to come up later. Trust me. Now, I don't want to be biased. Diane wasn't perfect. None of us are. While her friends and family mostly had glowing things to say about her, they also said at times she could be impatient and stubborn and hard-headed and pushy and impulsive. One time when Diane went out for milk, she came back with a flat screen TV. And another time she went out for groceries and she came back with a Jeep Cherokee. Our girl liked to shop. One friend said that while if she liked you, everything was sunshine and rainbows, but if she didn't, she could be very difficult. She also had secrets and could be heavily guarded. Friends and family said that she didn't talk about anything personal, like at all. She didn't open up. She was a very private person. And while Danny says that Diane only smoked pot on a rare occasion to help her sleep after a stressful day, Jay, her sister-in-law, says that this isn't accurate. She smoked on quite a regular basis. And to be fair, Danny wouldn't really know. He worked nights as a public security officer, whereas Diane, of course, worked days in her corporate position at Cablevision. The two didn't really cross paths a lot during the week, and weekends is the time that they really dedicated to be together and with the kids. And it was on a weekend in July 2009 that the Schuler family went on a camping trip, just like many of the other camping trips they had been on before, with their nieces, Emma, Allison, and Kate. So Danny left for the Hunter Lake campgrounds in Parksville, New York on the Thursday, the 23rd, just on his own with their dog Bear so that he could have a couple of solo days to fish. And then Diane gathered up all the kids in the minivan she borrowed from her brother, Warren Hance, and drove up to meet Danny on the Friday. The cousins were all really close, and it was super important to Diane, being so family orientated, that they have experiences like this together. She just loved having all the cousins together, and I can't blame her because this was a beautiful group of kids. Emma was the eldest of the Hance sisters at 8 years old and was just incredibly smart and excelled in maths and reading. She also loved soccer, softball, and performing on stage, and she loved being an older sister and was always watching out for Allison and Kate. Allison was 7 years old and also very clever. She was doing well at both school and sports, including gymnastics. And she was described as spirited and joyful with the uncanny ability to make friends with anyone she crossed paths with. Kate, or Katie, as she was mostly known by, was just 5, but she was described as very mature for her age. She was inquisitive and confident and loved playing dress-ups, and she was just adored by her sisters and extended family. Little Erin, the Schuler's 2-year-old daughter, was just such a happy little girl who lit up the room with her smile and brought so much joy to those around her. And Brian, their 5-year-old son, who was usually quite reserved and shy, just shone in pictures with Erin and clearly adored his little sister. He also loved his cousins and was a lot more outgoing and less serious when they were around. According to Danny, they had a great weekend. The Schulers were big campers. They'd been going on camping trips like this for 11 years, and the kids would have been really excited as this was the first camping trip of the season. They spent the weekend swimming and hiking and playing in the games room, roasting marshmallows, all those things you do when you go camping that I totally know about because I go camping never. While Danny originally said that neither him or Diane drank anything the whole weekend, he eventually said that Diane did have a couple of daiquiris on the Friday night, but that neither of them drank on the Saturday night because they were going to be driving home the next day, Sunday, the 26th of July, which was the day of the crash. So now we've gotten to the Sunday, I want to go over that day in detail and talk about the things that led up to the crash. There is a lot of information. I'm sorry if it gets confusing. I just want to be as thorough and factual as possible. If you do get confused or lose track of where we're at, I will leave a link to a timeline of the day as well down in the description. Between 5 and 6 a.m., Danny wakes up and goes to clean his boat. Diane wakes up a little bit later at about 7 a.m. and she gets all the 5 kids up, gets them all dressed and ready for the drive home, and cleans up the camper and the minivan, all that kind of thing. So there's a lot going on. At 9 a.m., Emma, the eldest niece, calls her dad, Warren, at his office and says that everything's good. They had a great time and they're looking forward to coming home. They should be there about 1 p.m. At 9:30 a.m., Ann Scott, the owner of Hunter Lake Campground, says that Diane seems totally fine and, in her opinion, completely sober. Danny is going to drive home in the Schuler's pickup truck with their dog named Bear. He's going straight home. Diane is going to pack all the kids back in the minivan, take the kids to McDonald's for breakfast, and pick up some gas before following suit behind Danny. At 9:56 a.m., Diane and the kids arrive at McDonald's in Liberty. The surveillance shows the kids acting completely normally, happy, playing in the playground, eating their McDonald's. The cashier who served Diane later told police that she was acting completely normal as well. They noticed no signs of intoxication. She didn't smell of booze. There was no reason to think she was under the influence at this point. This little bit of information kind of convinces me that Diane was sober, at least at this point. She convinced the cashier to sell her chicken selects for her son, Brian, during breakfast hours. And I don't know about you, but I have tried to get McDonald's to sell me something outside of the menu they're serving at that time, and it is impossible. Either Diane was some kind of master hypnotist and no one knew, or she was sober at this point, in my opinion. She also spoke to the cashier for quite a lengthy period of time, so I do think they would have been able to pick up if she was intoxicated at this point. Now, it's generally accepted that Diane, on top of the kids' order, didn't order herself any food, but ordered herself a iced coffee and a large orange juice. And people speculate that she used the orange juice as a mixer for the vodka that was found in the car. But I didn't really find any sources, like legit sources, that could confirm this for me that I was happy with. So I'm torn. I don't know if it's true or it's just a rumor that's taken off online and now everyone just believes. I don't know. I'm going to put it in, but I don't know if it's true. At 10:46 a.m., Diane and the minivan are seen on surveillance at a gas station, specifically Sunoco in Liberty. At this point, again, she seems totally sober. There doesn't seem to be anything wrong. She's not staggering or stumbling, nothing. She walks into the service station and has a quick look around and then a very short exchange with the attendant where allegedly she asks for pain medication and the attendant tells her that they don't have any. Danny, her sister-in-law Jay, and multiple other sources say that Diane would have been asking for something like Tylenol gel caps to help with the dental pain that we spoke about earlier. But I've done a bit of sleuthing here, and number one, we don't have audio to go with the surveillance footage. We can only see what's happening. We can't hear what's being said. And number two, according to the police report, which I'll link down below, when police went to interview the attendant after the crash, they refused to speak with the state police. So we don't really have any proof of what was said between Diane and the attendant. I've read that she could have been looking for alcohol. She appears to go near the fridges, but in the surveillance, you can see what looks like 6 packs of alcohol on the counter. So I think we can safely assume they served alcohol. And Diane had the jumbo 1.7 litre vodka bottle in the car. So I'm pretty doubtful alcohol was what she was after when she went into the service station. It's just that it seems like they didn't have whatever she was after. At 10:58 a.m., the minivan leaves the Sunoco gas station and heads south on Route 17. And I originally thought this timing was a bit odd. In the surveillance footage that's readily available on the internet, it's only a minute and a half long. You don't see Diane get gas, and they clearly didn't have what she was after. So why were they there for 10 minutes, more than 10 minutes? But then I read a post on a forum where someone said that they had seen the entire surveillance video. It's not available online anymore, unfortunately. I looked and looked and looked, but they say Diane did get gas and paid at the pump. So this pretty much explains the time frame here to my satisfaction anyway. At 11:37 a.m., Warren receives a call to his office from Diane, and she says they're running a little bit late. They'll be closer to 1:30 at arriving home. And he said she sounds totally fine at this point. She also calls and speaks with Jackie Hance, who is Warren's wife and the girl's mother. And she talks to her about how the girls have play practice that night. Diane asks Jackie to get her 2 tickets to the play. So just 2 really normal conversations. But around the time of these calls, between 11:30 and 12, something was clearly already going a bit wrong. In the interest of remaining factually accurate here, I'm going to just say that the next few details are based on eyewitness accounts of a woman matching Diane's description and a red minivan matching the 2003 Ford Windstar's description. Police have never confirmed that this was Diane and the minivan though, but given the description of the van, where it was traveling, the direction it was going, that it had a woman matching Diane's description in the car and 5 children in the car, we're just going to make the pretty safe assumption that this was Diane and the kids in the minivan. So there are multiple accounts of Diane driving very aggressively on Route 17 and Route 87. The minivan was making sharp lane changes and cutting cars off, and in most cases, doing these things with precision, but then in other cases, doing things like taking up 2 lanes. Diane was also doing things like honking her horn and flashing her headlights and nearly ramming a couple of cars. With one car that she was trying to overtake, she drove up on the shoulder trying to overtake them, and when she failed that, she pretty much held her horn down at them for like 1 mile or about 1.6 Ks. So we're talking very aggressive driving here. And I'm wondering, was Diane very, very stressed about them running late? She was obviously, like I said, a perfectionist. Maybe she was a little bit OCD about her timekeeping, and this was her trying to make up time, but going way over the top and taking dangerous measures to do this. At 11:45 a.m., Diane is reported as being hunched over on the side of Route 17 and appearing to vomit. The witness who reported this said that not much later, the red minivan overtook them and was continuing to zigzag erratically through traffic. This isn't the only report of Diane hunched over, appearing to be sick, so it sounds like she pulled over multiple times to throw up. At 12:13 p.m., the van passes through the Harriman Toll Plaza and then pulls over on the side of the road just north of the throughway service area in Sloatsburg. Diane is seen sitting on a guardrail looking unwell. The van then pulls back into traffic and really aggressively tailgates another car. The witness in this car says that both he and Diane pulled off into the rest area, in Sloatsburg. The driver pulled into the car parking area and Diane went right into the long-haul truck parking area. She then apparently realized her mistake and pulled over a grassy area to get to the car park. This witness also said that Diane did not appear well at this point. At 12:55 p.m., there is a 17-second wrong number phone call made from Diane's phone before at 12:58 p.m., Diane calls and speaks with Jackie Hance again, the girl's mother, who says that Diane sounds completely out of it. The call only lasts for 2.5 minutes before it drops out.